The mist hung heavy over the Vietnamese swampland as Lieutenant Kyle Carpenter signaled his platoon to halt. Sweat trickled down his spine despite the early morning chill. 3 men gone in as many days. No bodies, no blood trails, just the haunting echo of their final radio transmission. "Spot the sniper," before static consumed their voices. "Sir, permission to scout ahead?" Sergeant Emma Hayes kept her voice low, her keen eyes scanning the tree line. Unlike the others, Hayes didn't believe in ghosts, but something about this swamp made her skin crawl. Lieutenant Carpenter nodded. Hayes was different from the other Marines, not just because she was the only woman in their unit, but because she saw patterns others missed. Military intelligence had assigned her to their squad specifically for this operation. Her tracking skills were unmatched. "Take Basilone with you," Carpenter ordered. Corporal John Basilone, their best marksman, nodded grimly. His rifle was already positioned, ready for trouble. Staff Sergeant Leroy Petrie approached, his face etched with concern. "Sir, the men are talking. They're saying whatever's out there isn't human." "Cut that talk, Sergeant," Carpenter snapped, though his own doubts gnawed at him. "This is Vietnam, not a damn ghost story." Corporal Dakota Meyer joined them, his usual bravado subdued. "Something moved out there, Lieutenant." Wasn't natural, like the swamp itself took form. The mission was simple on paper. Secure the village beyond the marsh, establish a forward operating base. Intelligence suggested minimal resistance. They hadn't mentioned a phantom sniper who could make Marines vanish without a trace. Hayes adjusted her gear and moved out with Basilone, the sucking mud making each step a labor. The humidity transformed their fatigues into second skins. As they advanced, Hayes noticed something odd. Bent reeds that shouldn't be bent. Disturbed water patterns that defied the current's natural flow. "Someone's been through here," she whispered. "Recently," Basilone scanned the area through his scope. "I don't see—" A distant crack echoed across the water. Both Marines dropped instinctively as a radio call pierced their earpieces. "Man down! East perimeter!" They doubled back to find Corporal Meyer applying pressure to Petrie's shoulder. "Came out of nowhere," Meyer hissed. No muzzle flash, no sound until after the hit. Lieutenant Carpenter organized a defensive position while Hayes studied the trajectory of the shot. "The bullet came from that direction," she pointed toward a seemingly impenetrable section of mangroves. "But the angle's wrong. It's like—" She hesitated. "Like it came from underwater." That night, as Petrie was evacuated and the platoon established a perimeter, Hayes approached Carpenter with a theory. "Sir, I think we're dealing with one person, a highly trained sniper using the environment in ways we haven't seen before." "One person took out 4 Marines?" Carpenter's disbelief was evident. 3 missing, 1 wounded, Hayes corrected. "And yes, I believe so. The locals speak of a woman, a former village daughter trained by Russian advisors. They call her the Swamp Ghost." Carpenter's laugh held no humor. "A woman? Hayes, even you had to fight tooth and nail to get field clearance." "With respect, sir, sexism might be our weakness here. We're looking for a man because we can't imagine anything else." Dawn broke with a plan. Hayes would act as bait, while Basilone positioned himself to take the shot when the sniper revealed their position. Carpenter protested, but Hayes was adamant. "The ghost only takes targets moving in pairs or groups," she explained. "A lone Marine might draw curiosity instead of fire." Hours passed as Hayes navigated deeper into the swamp. Every sound, every ripple in the murky water sent adrenaline coursing through her veins. Then she saw it. A slight disturbance in what appeared to be a floating mass of vegetation. Not vegetation. A camouflaged blind made of local plants, nearly indistinguishable from the surrounding swamp. Hayes pretended not to notice, continuing her careful movements until she reached a small island. As she expected, the floating blind changed position, tracking her. Hayes made a show of checking her equipment, exposing her back, a tempting target. The attack came not from the blind, but from beneath Hayes's feet. A woman erupted from a concealed mud pit, reed breathing tube discarded as she lunged with a knife. Hayes barely deflected the blade, rolling backward as her attacker revealed herself. Young, determined, her eyes reflecting a hatred born of endless war. "I see you." Hayes said calmly, though her heart hammered. As you've seen us, the woman replied in accented English. Americans always look up, look forward. Never down, never beneath. You've killed my friends. You've killed my village. The woman's knife remained steady. Your planes, your bombs. Hayes had a sidearm but didn't reach for it. Instead, she slowly removed her helmet. I'm Sergeant Emma Hayes. Who are you? The question seemed to surprise the woman. Perhaps no American had ever asked her name before. Lynn, she finally said. A silent moment stretched between them. Two soldiers, two women seeing each other clearly for the first time. Basilone has you in his sights, Hayes said softly. But I haven't given the signal. Lynn's eyes flickered to the tree line. Why? Because there's been enough death in this swamp. What followed was a choice born of courage greater than any combat maneuver. Hayes offered Lynn safe passage away from the advancing American forces. In exchange, Lynn revealed the locations of the missing Marines. Not dead, but trapped in ingenious pitfalls throughout the marsh. When Lieutenant Carpenter led the rescue mission, recovering all 3 men alive, the platoon's fear transformed into something like respect. The ghost had risen from the swamp, but through Hayes's bravery, no more blood was shed that day. As they finally secured the village, Basilone approached Hayes. You could have given the signal. Why didn't you? Hayes watched the distant tree line where Lynn had disappeared. Because sometimes winning isn't about who you kill, she answered. Sometimes it's about who you choose to spare. Word spread among the Marines about the woman who faced the swamp ghost and lived, a different kind of courage in a war that had seen too little of it. The Louisiana bayou breathed like a living entity as Captain Michael Murphy led his 6-man force recon unit deeper into the swamp. Night vision goggles cast an eerie green glow over the murky waters and twisted cypress trees. Intelligence Officer Riley Jackson moved silently at his side, the only woman ever assigned to their elite unit. Her presence had raised eyebrows initially, but her unparalleled expertise in counter-sniper operations had quickly silenced any doubters. Movement. 2 o'clock, whispered Sergeant First Class Alwyn Cash, his rifle already trained on a distant shadow. Captain Murphy raised a closed fist, halting the team in their tracks as Jackson studied the tree line through specialized optics. Quick pause. Comment where you're watching from, and if you love these stories, hit subscribe now. The next one will blow your mind, and it's even crazier. False alarm, Jackson murmured after a tense moment. Just a gator. This mission was classified beyond top secret. Officially, they weren't even in the country. The target, a legendary cartel assassin known only as the Ghost, responsible for eliminating 19 high-value targets across 3 continents without leaving a single trace. Intelligence suggested the Ghost was using the remote bayou as a training ground before a planned assassination of a visiting diplomat. Comms check, Murphy ordered as they approached the operation zone. Static answered him. He tapped his earpiece with a frown. Anybody reading? Nothing but crackling interference met his question. Jackson checked her own equipment with growing concern. GPS is down too, sir. Specialist Williams, their communications expert, shook his head in confusion. Equipment was functioning perfectly during pre-mission checks. Something's actively jamming us. The team exchanged uneasy glances. Their target shouldn't have access to tech sophisticated enough to neutralize military-grade equipment. Captain Murphy made a quick decision. We proceed as planned. Radio silence protocols in effect. 3 hours later, Williams was dead. His body was found face down in shallow water. A single entry wound at the base of his skull, the shot fired with surgical precision from an impossible angle. No one had heard a thing. Whoever did this was closer than 20 meters, Jackson whispered as she examined the wound. No suppressor technology is that good. Murphy organized the remaining men into a defensive formation as darkness fell. No one slept that night, eyes constantly scanning the surrounding swamp for any sign of movement. By morning, Corporal Rodriguez was missing from his watch position. They found only his rifle, meticulously placed against a cypress tree. What the hell are we dealing with? Demanded Lieutenant Cooper, the team's demolitions expert. No footprints, no disturbance, nothing. Jackson studied the ground where Rodriguez had been stationed. Sir, she called to Murphy, look at this. A single shell casing gleamed in the morning light, partially embedded in mud. The caliber matched no known cartel weapon. More disturbing was the manufacturer's stamp, a government code that had been discontinued a decade ago. "This isn't cartel," Jackson concluded. "We've been fed bad intel." Sergeant Cash approached, his usual stoic expression betraying traces of genuine fear. "Sir, there's something else you should see." 50 yards from their position, Cash had discovered a surveillance camera disguised as tree bark, military-grade hardware with distinct modifications. "This is one of ours," Murphy said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "Someone's watching us." Jackson's mind raced through possibilities. "Captain, I need to check something." She pulled out a specialized detector from her pack, sweeping it around the swamp. The device remained silent until she pointed it toward a dense section of mangroves. The needle jumped wildly. "Experimental tech signatures," she explained. "The kind being developed for next-generation combat systems." Murphy's expression darkened. "You think this is a field test? Using us as targets?" "I think we need to split up," Jackson replied. "I'll draw them out while you get the team to extraction." Murphy immediately objected, but Jackson stood firm. "With respect, sir, I'm trained specifically for this. And whoever's out there expects us to stay together." After heated debate, Murphy reluctantly agreed. As Jackson slipped away into the swamp, the remaining 4 men moved in the opposite direction. Within 30 minutes, another shot rang out, claiming Lieutenant Cooper. Alone in the bayou, Jackson moved like a ghost herself, utilizing every counter-sniper technique in her arsenal. Hours passed as she circled back toward where she believed the shooter was operating from. The sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the water. Then she saw it. A slight disturbance in the water's surface that didn't match the natural current. Jackson froze, becoming part of the landscape as she observed. Minutes later, a figure emerged partially from beneath a camouflaged blind, so perfect it had appeared to be nothing more than floating vegetation. The figure, slender, clearly female, adjusted something on what appeared to be a custom rifle before submerging again. Jackson memorized the position and began a silent approach, using the growing darkness as cover. The confrontation, when it came, was swift and silent. Jackson slipped beneath the water, coming up beneath the hidden blind and surging upward with her combat knife ready. She found herself face to face with a young woman whose eyes reflected neither fear nor surprise, only cold calculation. "Officer Riley Jackson," the woman said in a voice barely above a whisper. "I wondered when you'd find me." Jackson kept her knife steady. "You know my name. I know everything about your team. That was the point. Who are you? Cartel?" The woman's laugh held no humor. "My name is Sophia Chen. Until 3 months ago, I was developing adaptive camouflage systems for DARPA." Understanding dawned on Jackson with chilling clarity. "This isn't a hunt. It's a demonstration." Chen nodded toward a small waterproof case. "Evidence is in there. Your team was sacrificed to showcase my technology to potential buyers. Your government wanted plausible deniability. What better than a cartel ghost story?" Jackson's training warred with her humanity as she processed the betrayal. In the distance, she heard Murphy's voice calling for her. He'd circled back despite her instructions. "They'll kill you too," Chen warned. "You weren't supposed to survive this long." Jackson made her decision. Taking the evidence case, she signaled to Murphy with their team's rescue code. As the remaining Marines converged on her position, Jackson realized the true ghost in this swamp wasn't Chen. It was the shadow of corruption that had sent them here to die. When they finally emerged from the bayou 3 days later, they carried with them not just the truth about experimental weapons being sold to America's enemies, but a new understanding of what courage meant in the face of betrayal by those they had sworn to serve.